Picture this. It's 1964, and something extraordinary is about to happen on American roads. The screech of tires, the rumble of a massive V8 engine, and the smell of burning rubber. This wasn't just about cars anymore. This was revolution on four wheels. Today, we're diving into the machines that didn't just transport people from point A to point B. These are the 10 muscle cars that literally changed automotive history forever. Buckle up, because this ride is going to be wild. Number 10. The 1949 Oldsmobile Rocket 88. The Pioneer. Let's start where it all began. Most people think muscle cars kicked off in the 60s, but the truth goes back further. The 1949 Oldsmobile Rocket 88 is where the muscle car story truly starts. Here's what made it revolutionary. Oldsmobile took their powerful new overhead valve Rocket V8 engine, originally designed for the luxury Oldsmobile 98, and dropped it into the smaller, lighter body of the Oldsmobile 76. This formula of putting the biggest engine into a lighter vehicle became the blueprint for every muscle car that followed. The Rocket 88 produced 135 horsepower and 263 pound-feet of torque from its 303 cubic inch V8. Those numbers might sound modest today, but in 1949, this combination was absolutely devastating. The car dominated NASCAR in 1950, winning 8 out of 10 races. It wasn't just fast on the track either. This was the car that inspired rock and roll itself. The song Rocket 88 is considered by many historians to be the first rock and roll record ever made. The Rocket 88 proved that performance and style could coexist in an affordable package. It showed Detroit that Americans had an appetite for power, and manufacturers would spend the next 3 decades trying to satisfy that hunger. Number 9. The 1964 Pontiac GTO. The Godfather. If the Rocket 88 was the grandfather of muscle cars, the 1964 Pontiac GTO was the godfather. This is the car that automotive historians point to as the first true muscle car of the golden era. The GTO was the brainchild of John DeLorean and his team at Pontiac. They had a problem. General Motors had banned factory-sponsored racing and limited engine sizes in mid-size cars to 330 cubic inches. DeLorean's solution was brilliantly rebellious. He offered the 389 cubic inch V8 as an option package on the Pontiac Tempest, effectively circumventing General Motors' corporate rules. The result was explosive. The base GTO produced 325 horsepower, but buyers could upgrade to the tri-power carburation system for 348 horses. At a time when most cars were lucky to crack 200 horsepower, this was staggering. The GTO could sprint from 0 to 60 in under 7 seconds and blast through the quarter mile in the mid-14s. But numbers only tell part of the story. The GTO made high performance accessible. Priced at just $2,852, it was affordable for the average American. Pontiac expected to sell around 5,000 units. They sold over 32,000 in the first year alone. The GTO didn't just break sales records, it ignited the horsepower wars. Every manufacturer scrambled to create their own muscle car to compete. Without the GTO, the entire muscle car era might never have exploded the way it did. Number 8. The 1966 Dodge Charger, the Street Brawler. When Dodge entered the muscle car arena in 1966, they didn't just show up. They made an entrance. The Charger was Dodge's answer to the Ford Mustang and Pontiac GTO, but it took a different approach with its distinctive fastback design and aggressive styling. The first-generation Charger featured hidden headlights, a full-width grille, and one of the most spectacular interiors ever put in a production car. It had 4 individual bucket seats, electroluminescent gauges that glowed at night, and a center console that ran the entire length of the cabin. When you folded down the rear seats, the Charger had nearly as much cargo space as a station wagon. Under the hood, buyers could choose from several V8 options, but the real star was the 426 Street Hemi. Rated at 425 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, the Hemi was essentially a detuned race engine built for the street. This wasn't just powerful, it was legendary. The Hemi became so dominant that it's still the most recognizable engine name in American automotive history. While initial sales were modest, the Charger laid the groundwork for what was coming. The second-generation Charger, launched in 1968, became one of the most iconic muscle cars ever built. With its Coke bottle styling and menacing presence, the Charger didn't just compete in the muscle car wars, it often won. Its influence extended beyond the street to NASCAR, where modified Chargers with aerodynamic noses and massive rear wings broke the 200-mile-per-hour barrier. Number 7, the 1968 Chevrolet Chevelle SS 454, the Beast. General Motors may have started the muscle car revolution with the GTO, but Chevrolet refined it to perfection with the Chevelle SS. While the Chevelle SS had been around since 1964, it was the 1970 model with the LS6 454 cubic inch big block that became the stuff of legend. This wasn't just another muscle car. The LS6 454 was rated at 450 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque, making it one of the most powerful production engines ever offered in a mid-size car. Those were conservative factory numbers. Real-world dyno tests suggested the actual output was even higher. The Chevelle SS 454 could annihilate the quarter mile in the low 13s, and it did so with a brutal, visceral character that drivers either loved or feared. The car had presence, that massive hood scowl, the aggressive stance, the dual exhaust rumble. You knew a Chevelle SS was coming before you ever saw it. What made the Chevelle particularly significant was its timing. It arrived at the peak of the muscle car era, just before emissions regulations and insurance costs killed the horsepower party. The LS6 Chevelle represented the absolute zenith of American muscle car performance. It was the last gasp of unlimited horsepower, and Chevrolet made sure it was memorable. Today, the 1970 Chevelle SS 454 with the LS6 engine is one of the most valuable muscle cars on the market, with pristine examples selling for six figures. It's not just a car, it's a piece of automotive history frozen at the exact moment when American muscle reached its peak. Number 6. The 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429, the NASCAR Warrior. Ford had a problem in 1969. Chrysler's 426 Hemi was dominating NASCAR, and Ford needed a response. Their answer was the Boss 429 Mustang, one of the most extreme and rare muscle cars ever built. The Boss 429 was never really intended to be a street car. NASCAR homologation rules required manufacturers to build at least 500 road-going versions of any engine they wanted to race. Ford created the Boss 429 to satisfy those rules while developing their NASCAR racing program. The 429 cubic inch semi-hemispherical V8 was so massive that it wouldn't fit in a stock Mustang engine bay. Ford had to ship Mustang bodies to Carcraft in Michigan, where workers cut and relocated the shock towers and reinforced the front end just to accommodate the engine. Each car received a special NASCAR identification plate and a KK number reflecting Carcraft's custom modifications. Officially rated at 375 horsepower, the Boss 429 was grossly underrated. Real output was closer to 500 horsepower, and with minor modifications, these engines could easily produce 600 horses or more. Only 1,359 Boss 429 Mustangs were built across 1969 and 1970, making them among the rarest factory muscle cars ever produced. What made the Boss 429 historically significant wasn't just its rarity or power, it represented Ford's commitment to winning at all costs. The Boss 429 engine helped Ford capture 26 NASCAR victories in 1969 alone. On the street, these cars became instant legends, combining exotic racing technology with Mustang's iconic style. Number 5. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda, the collector's dream. The 1970 Plymouth Barracuda was already a stunning car, but when Plymouth dropped the 426 Hemi into it and created the Hemi Cuda, they created automotive royalty. Everything about the Hemi Cuda was excessive and glorious. That shaker hood scoop that protruded through the hood and shook with the engine. The bold colors with names like Plum Crazy Purple, Limelight, and Torrid. The aggressive stance and muscular proportions. This was a car that looked as intimidating standing still as it did at full throttle. The 426 Hemi engine was the same legendary power plant that had dominated drag strips and NASCAR tracks. In the lightweight E-body platform of the Barracuda, it was absolutely devastating. Hemi Cudas could run the quarter mile in the low 13-second range straight from the factory, and with simple modifications, they could dip into the 12s or even 11s. But here's what makes the Hemi Cuda truly special. Only 652 were built in 1970 and just 108 in 1971. This rarity, combined with the car's stunning looks and legendary performance, has made it one of the most valuable muscle cars in existence. Pristine examples have sold at auction for over $2 million. The Hemi Cuda represents the peak of Mopar muscle car design. It combined the most powerful engine available with one of the best-looking bodies ever put on a muscle car. Even today, nearly 55 years later, the Hemi Cuda remains the ultimate dream car for collectors worldwide. Number 4. The 1967 Shelby GT 500, the Snake's masterpiece. When Carroll Shelby took Ford's Mustang and transformed it into the GT 350, he created something special. But when he built the GT 500, he created a legend. The GT 500 was Shelby's answer to customer demands for more power. The GT 350 had the small block 289, which was great for handling and road racing, but American buyers wanted cubic inches, and Shelby delivered. The GT 500 came with Ford's 428 cubic inch Police Interceptor Big Block V8, producing a conservative 355 horsepower. What made the GT 500 different from other muscle cars was the total package. Shelby didn't just add a big engine, he engineered the entire car. Upgraded suspension, better brakes, modified bodywork with functional scoops and vents, improved cooling systems. The GT 500 could dominate on the street, but it could also handle twisty roads and even occasional track duty. The styling was aggressive but refined. Those twin racing stripes, the aggressive front end with driving lights, the side scoops, the unique tail panel. The GT 500 looked fast standing still, and it had the performance to back up its appearance. Carroll Shelby's involvement gave the GT 500 instant credibility and desirability. These weren't just modified Mustangs. They were Shelby creations, each one bearing his signature. Today, the Shelby name commands premium prices, with GT 500s regularly selling for several $100,000. The GT 500 proved that muscle cars could be more than just straight-line speedsters. They could be sophisticated, well-engineered performance machines that worked on multiple levels. Number 3. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona, the 200 miles per hour Pioneer. Some muscle cars were built for the street. Some were built for the drag strip. The 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona was built to absolutely dominate NASCAR superspeedways, and it did exactly that. The Daytona was created for one purpose: to beat Ford in NASCAR. Dodge engineers added a pointed 18-inch nose cone and a massive rear wing mounted on tall supports. These modifications looked wild, even ridiculous to some, but they were purely functional aerodynamics designed to reduce drag and increase high-speed stability. The results were spectacular. On March 24, 1970, Buddy Baker drove a Charger Daytona to 200.447 miles per hour at Talladega, becoming the first driver to break the 200 miles per hour barrier in NASCAR. The Daytona and its Plymouth Superbird cousin dominated so completely that NASCAR eventually banned them from competition. Only 503 Charger Daytonas were built for the street to meet NASCAR homologation requirements. These cars were so radical that dealers actually struggled to sell them initially. Some dealers removed the nose cone and wing just to move inventory. Today, those same cars are worth fortunes, with pristine examples commanding over $500,000. The Charger Daytona represents muscle car engineering at its most extreme and purposeful. It wasn't built to look pretty or cruise boulevards. It was built to win races at speeds that seemed impossible at the time. It succeeded beyond anyone's expectations and changed NASCAR forever. Number 2. The 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1, the gentleman's hot rod. When people think of muscle cars, Buick isn't usually the first name that comes to mind. That's exactly why the 1970 GSX Stage 1 is so remarkable. It was one of the fastest muscle cars of the era, yet it flew under the radar. The GSX was based on the Buick Grand Sport, but the Stage 1 performance package transformed it into a genuine supercar. The 455 cubic inch V8 with Stage 1 tuning produced 360 horsepower and an absolutely massive 510 pound-feet of torque. That torque figure was the highest of any production muscle car at the time. What made the GSX special was how it delivered that performance. While other muscle cars were loud and aggressive, the Buick had refinement. It had better sound insulation, a smoother ride, more luxurious interior appointments. You could cruise it comfortably all day, then surprise unsuspecting competitors at traffic lights. The GSX Stage 1 could run the quarter mile in the low 13-second range, matching or beating more famous competitors. Car magazines consistently ranked it among the quickest muscle cars they tested. Yet because it wore a Buick badge rather than Pontiac, Chevrolet, or Dodge, it remained relatively unknown. Only 678 GSX models were built in 1970, making it rarer than many of its more famous competitors. The GSX proved that muscle cars didn't have to be crude or uncomfortable. You could have world-class performance wrapped in a sophisticated, refined package. Number 1. The 1970 Chevrolet Camaro Z28, the all-around champion. The Chevrolet Camaro Z28 wasn't the most powerful muscle car. It wasn't the rarest or the most expensive, but it might just be the most important muscle car ever built because it proved that muscle cars could do more than just go fast in a straight line. The Z28 was created for Trans Am racing, which had a displacement limit of 305 cubic inches. Chevrolet built a special 302 cubic inch V8 that produced 360 horsepower and could rev to 7,000 revolutions per minute. This wasn't a lazy torque monster, it was a high-strung, sophisticated performance engine. But the Z28 was about total performance. It came with heavy-duty suspension, front disc brakes, quick ratio steering, and fat tires. The whole package was designed to corner, brake, and accelerate with equal capability. While other muscle cars dominated drag strips, the Z28 could carve through corners on road courses. The Z28 inspired an entire generation of enthusiasts and proved that American manufacturers could build cars that handled as well as they accelerated. It competed directly against the Ford Mustang Boss 302 in one of the greatest muscle car rivalries of all time. Both on the track and on the street, the Z28 and Boss 302 pushed each other to be better, faster, and more capable. The Z28 name became so iconic that Chevrolet revived it multiple times over the decades. Today's Camaro Z28 still carries that performance heritage, connecting directly back to those original Trans Am Warriors from 1967. What makes the Z28 number 1 on this list is its legacy. It showed that muscle cars could evolve beyond pure horsepower. It demonstrated that handling, braking, and overall driving dynamics mattered just as much as straight-line speed. The Z28 didn't just change muscle car history, it helped define what performance cars could become. There you have it, 10 machines that didn't just move metal down the road, they moved an entire generation. From an era when horsepower was king, and the only question that mattered was, how fast can you go? So here's the real question. If you could park just one of these legends in your garage tonight, which one would it be? The Godfather GTO, the brutal Hemi Cuda, the sophisticated Z28, Drop your answer in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through muscle car history, smash that like button and subscribe for more automotive content. Thanks for watching, and keep the rubber burning.